Who is Tila Falic? Just a few days from now, Tila will be on a very different stage, running the Jerusalem Post Policy Summit in Washington, D.C. Tila's been known as a philanthropist, a leader, activist, any one of a number of accolades that speak so oftentimes to her public persona. Her profile has been skyrocketing. If you've been following anything that's been going on with Israel, giving, and some of the social activism, you've probably come across her name. But those titles and the public profile don't really help us understand who she really is. Fortunately, what I expected to be just a quiet fireside chat actually metamorphosized very quickly into a masterclass in giving. We'll learn a little bit about that blue tzedakah or charity box that she grew up with in her home, about the mother who nursed her while taking her to community volunteer events, programs, and meetings, and the way that she herself is raising 6 children to turn birthdays into opportunities for giving. We'll hear everything from her experiences in Miami to Israel, and how after October 7th, she pivoted, along with her sisters, from major big giving events into the very personal, behind the scenes, and direct giving with orphans, with widows, with soldiers, and with all sorts of communities that needed to rebuild. So who is Tila Falic? We're about to find out. This is You Are What You Give. Let's begin. What if the way you give says more about who you are than anything else? I'm Avi Zimmerman, giving coach, strategist, and lifelong student. And this is You Are What You Give, a podcast about generosity, purpose, and fascinating people. Thank you for joining us on the journey of a life worth living. Hello, Tila Falic, and thank you for joining us here today. This is actually very, very exciting. I would say that, first of all, we spoke a little bit before about giving, how we have a broad view of what giving is. So on the You Are What You Give podcast, we first and foremost thank you for giving of your time, your energy, your effort. We are recording from Jerusalem, August of 2025, and this pre-recorded episode is happening in the middle of a sandstorm and a very extreme chamsin, or a heat wave that's swept this entire country. So thank you for coming out, notwithstanding the difficult circumstances.
Thank you for having me. Anything that has to do with giving or Israel and in Jerusalem, I'm in.
So we're going to talk about giving in as broad terms as possible. We're going to speak about it from your perspective. And indeed, this podcast, although broadcast from Jerusalem, is going to reach a community that's not limited to the Jewish community or the pro-Israel community. It's about people who want to give. I believe that there's a lot to tell in that giving story coming from Jerusalem, and that's why it's so significant that we're recording from here. But we're going to keep in mind that our audience, as broad as it is, wants to understand your story in giving. Now, before we actually talk about your giving, we want to talk about your family. But before we talk about your family, I just want to quickly note, because again, our community is very, very broad, they might not appreciate the fact that a lot of Hebrew names carry meaning to them. So when we start the story of Tila Falic, so Tila, first of all, is a nickname for Tehillah, correct?
Yes.
And Tehillah means praise, correct?
Praise or glory to God.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so you've got a better translation than I do. I have a niece. Her name is Hallel, which means praise. And I call her Praise, and everyone thinks I'm crazy because that's not her name. Her name is Hallel.
My mom will call me Gloria, and then
really?
It's like an inside joke. But yes, it's definitely deep-rooted in connection to God and glorifying who we are.
Well, that's awesome. So I have a question on that before we jump in. Is that glorification of God, whatever that means, because that's also pretty broad, is that a calling?
I'll tell you, I think that instead of a name making a baby makes the name, right? So when you name somebody a certain name, they're even trying to live up to the standards of a person that once was, whether it's a biblical person or a person in their family, or living up to something that the family loves or believed in. And whatever that name is, you grow into it. I don't think my parents did it on purpose, but today I would say the name Tehillah is definitely synonymous with something that has to do with Israel or even Judea and Samaria, because it's not like a very mainstream Israeli name. It's not a modern name, but it is a name that's deep-rooted in faith and in maybe Jewish religion, but not just Jewish religion. I would say just biblical ties. And I love my name because I do think that it brings me power and gives me a sense of responsibility that I have to glorify God in everything that I do.
Well, I think that's a huge responsibility. Let me take this opportunity to just broaden the scope for just a bit. Not that we can broaden it more than the glory of God's name, maybe a little bit less, a little narrower than that, but still broad. And that is where your story begins. So in addition to your name and your mom calling you Gloria, you do come from what I would suggest perhaps is a dynasty of giving. You have this family history which you were basically born into. And what does that look like? Because you said a responsibility. Is there a responsibility, not only the glorification of God's name, but being part of a giving family?
100%. But one thing that I want to clarify that many people don't know and don't realize is that I did not grow up in a wealthy family. I grew up in a family that gave of their time, gave of their energy, gave of their connections to people and to the land. I can tell you on one side, my grandmother is Israeli, 8th generation Israeli, and her family gave to this country to establish the state of Israel. And on my mother's side, we came from Holocaust survivors. And we were taught from a very young age that we needed to be involved, whatever it was, in our community, in our surroundings, in who we are, in our identity. So people will look at us many times and say like, well, yeah, of course, you know, you're born into this family. Yeah, I was born into this family that taught us from a very young age that we were responsible for our giving. And that giving started in very simple ways. My parents were very young and we had a tzedakah box at home. My grandmother worked for JNF, Jewish National Fund. We had the little blue tzedakah box. And
when you say tzedakah, just so everyone knows, we're talking
charity box.
A charity box. A little tin can. Back then they were made out of tin.
But I think that that's a very important point because Jews are taught biblically from a very young age to give. We have songs about giving. We have stories about giving. Our children, when they're in nursery school, they have to always put a little coin into these boxes. That's how we were raised, and that's how we raise our children. So when I was a little girl, yes, I had a little charity box to buy trees in Israel, and I was sure that my grandmother was taking that money and planting the trees herself. She wasn't, but she was teaching us something important. And the other thing that I grew up with was that my mother was a volunteer for an organization called WITZO, the Women's International Zionist Organization. And historically, WITZO was for women, Jewish women around the world, to do events and collect money to help the Jewish kids that were underprivileged here in Israel. My mother nursed me in these meetings, took me on these missions. So from a very young age, I knew that you had to give your coins, which was your money, but I also knew you had to give your time because my mother and my grandmother were always giving of their time. And that is something that I was born into. But it wasn't that I was born into the wealth of giving. I was born into the wealth of knowing how to give of yourself. And I think that that's a huge privilege. And yes, it was a responsibility because my grandmother did important things. My mother did important things. Of course, the men in our family did too. They worked really hard to be able to help our people. But I was raised wanting to do something important for my community, local community, and for our people here in Israel.
So there's a lot in everything you've just said right now. And first of all, just growing into that and that awareness of a responsibility, we keep getting back to that. There's a responsibility to the people. If we just take a slightly historic perspective on that, so think about that, decades back, the situation that the state of Israel was in then is very different than the state of Israel today.
Very.
Fledgling state, from one war to the next. It is true that we are recording this. There's another war going on, the October 7 war, and it seems that the wars, we haven't shaken those just yet. But that sort of sense of, if you don't step up, maybe things wouldn't happen. Is that the kind of intensity that was in the home at the time?
The intensity for us really was that there was always somebody that was less privileged than we were. No matter where you are in life, there's always somebody behind you and there's going to be many people in front of you. And that's something actually that my brother, when he gave of himself and came to serve in the military here in Israel as a volunteer, When he came home, I said to him, what did you learn? What was different? Being in the Army, being away from home, besides responsibility. And he said that when he would go on these missions, he would always see the people ahead of him, and he was always trying to catch up to them. But then he would look back and see that there were people behind him who needed help. And that was inspiring to be able to bring them on and give more strength. That's a perfect example. That's a real life example, but that's a perfect example of how we should live. We can always aspire to do more. We can always aspire to be more and to grow more. But when you look behind you and you see the people that are struggling, well, in whatever way they are, it's not always a money thing. They're struggling in their lives. They're struggling in their careers. They're struggling with their families. Sometimes just a good word, that's giving too. Sometimes giving a hand, helping somebody up, get up, cross the street. Those are simple things. But when you really give of your time and you sit down and you talk to people and you understand where they are in life, I think that is what builds like that pay it forward movement of helping somebody who one day will help somebody else.
Well, that's 100% true. And obviously it kind of reminds us of all the different ways that we can be giving, obviously not limited to money. But is there a sacrifice in that? Your mother taking you from one place to the next, you coming in with this kind of responsibility. Maybe some of your peers, they might have had one of these tzedakah boxes, these charity boxes, but maybe they weren't as intense about their commitment to it. Did you ever feel like you were losing out because of the time that you were spending investing in the community?
I don't think you're ever losing out, and I don't think it's a sacrifice. I think it's choices. And when you're in a position that you can give, whatever it is that you're giving, you're making a choice. It's a conscious decision to be involved in something and in a specific way of how you want to be involved. It just so happens that I'm not limited to I don't have very set boundaries in the way that I give, because there are many things that I'm passionate about. And that's a very important point. The most important thing when you give is to find what you're passionate about. And if you're passionate about something, you're going to give the best of what you can. Some people connect to children. Some people connect to widows. Some people connect to animals, the Humane Society. Some people connect to hospitals, to theater, to the arts. Whatever it is that you want to commit yourself, and you're going to make a conscious decision to give of your time, to give of your energy, or to give of your money, it's very important to just find something that you connect to on a very high level so that you don't lose that force to want to try to help and change whatever it is. We can't change the entire world. We can change our world, and our world is wherever we're immersed in. So for many people, it's many different things. I live in Miami, so I care about Miami. I live in a Jewish community. I care about my Jewish community. I live as a part of an advocate and, a lover of Israel. So I live in that community too. But you have to fill a space where you are relevant and that you're passionate so that you can continue to commit yourself in every way possible.
So there's actually a lot there as well, because we're talking about these broad strokes of giving, and any way that you're giving is significant. But then you speak about, I'm going to use the term concentric circles. You've got your geographic space, then you have additional commitments to the community beyond, and all the way reaching all the way to Israel. And so you speak also about the passion. I would suggest perhaps that we're speaking about something that's very purposeful, perhaps even life purpose. Maybe not all of your life purposes in your giving, but it does express part of who you are and maybe some of that calling that we were referring to earlier.
It may be that I happen to be very defined in my identity, and I know very well who I am and what my responsibility is. So for me, it's very easy to find what I'm passionate about. But it doesn't mean that you're not restricted only to a physical space. There are many people that are involved in helping children in Africa get clean water. And there's many people that are involved in finding humanitarian needs or teaching women to write in other countries. So again, it has to be something that you're passionate about, because you cannot do it all. You can try to do it all, but you're going to do it better if you're doing something that you're really committed to and that you really feel deep inside. And you feel a deep sense of responsibility and connection. And when I say Miami, I'm not restricted to the space, but I know that my impact of whatever my investment will be will go a long way if I have that physical space for me. Some people don't. Listen, I have 6 kids. And my most important role and my most important job is raising 6 good humans that are going to be contributing to this world in a positive way. Once I do that, I could do everything else. So of course, I'm restricted to the fact that my kids are in Miami. I am responsible for my children, and I can't pack a bag and go to Africa. Some people can, and they find true meaning in that. And that's amazing, because at least they're committing themselves to helping others. So I limit myself to my space, but it doesn't mean that that's the only way to give. That's the way I do it.
Well, it doesn't sound to me like you're limiting yourself at all, especially when you've got these 6 children of varying ages that are going out into the world. That's not limitation. I would consider that abundance. That's actually opportunities that you're creating, this force multiplication for what's going to come forward in the future. And I imagine that's what you're referring to. I think this question of what is it that you're doing when you are committing to them beyond the space specifically of your community. So again, if we don't look at it as a limitation, but instead we do refer to this Jewish concept, this Jewish tradition, really a Jewish law of giving first to the poor of your community. There's a prioritization. And that might suggest that we get back to that word responsibility. If you're not going to take care of the people in your community, it doesn't mean, like you say, all of the people with all of the different needs, but a certain kind of need in the community. If you're not tending to that need, how should we expect someone from the next community over that has their own needs, that they would tend to the needs in your community?
100%. And that's why when people come to me and ask me to help them with a project that is in South America or with a project that is in Europe, it's less interesting to me, not because I don't care, but because I feel like I need to first take care of my own. There's enough people in those communities that can help them that I'm sure are just as talented, if not more. And I do find responsibility in my own. So that begins not just in your community, but it should begin in your family. Your family would be then your community, then, and then so forth and so on. Now, that responsibility, there's many ways to execute. But when you talk about my own children, I do like for my kids to have real life hands-on experiences. So that doesn't mean just, yes, you put a coin in the box because that's what we were taught. But it also means visiting someone who's not well. It means having a bake sale and taking that money and doing something with it. So we do a lot in our home that teaches our kids about giving. And I can tell you that even when my kids have a birthday party and they, thank God, get 25 gifts from their friends, I tell them, you can keep 5 and we're giving the rest away. And then I get like a whole, dramatic experience from whoever's birthday it is until they realize at a certain age, it's true. I got 5 new things. I don't need everything else. Thank God. We're blessed and we're able to share. And so there's local hospitals, there's local food banks, there's local charities with children that are sick with terminal illness, their siblings. So when we have holidays and when we have celebrations in our home, we try to take that out into the community. And that's how I teach my kids, not just to put the coin in the box and one day it'll show up somewhere. It's hands-on giving and then getting involved in their schools, in their activities, in their communities. And then in the long run, the experience brings you back to good moments in your life and nice memories. And I do have adult children and young children, and it works because they remember that. It's not just what I told them, it's what they actually did themselves.
Right. That's actually phenomenal. I've heard some interesting models of how people are raising a younger generation to give. I'd like to think that everyone's doing that to a different extent, but that's amazing. I've never heard that with the 25 gifts and 20 go to the community.
I also make them give their siblings each a gift. I forgot about that. So it starts
from their birthday?
Yes.
So they got 25 gifts. So one goes to each of the siblings so that now they're down to 19.
Something like that. I'm just trying to make it that the bulk of it we can give away and we can share, because at the end of the day, if you got 6 Barbies or if you got 2 Barbies, you're going to be happy with your Barbies.
Right. Well, that's pretty amazing, actually. I wonder what that interaction amongst peers is like, because I know that you and your sisters and your siblings are all involved in doing things, again, for Israel. Is there some sort of a camaraderie there? Is it like a team effort, or is everyone kind of doing their own thing?
Both. The answer is both. We work on a lot of projects together. I would say my sisters are really my partners in everything that I do. My brother as well. My brother works full time, so his talents are on a very high level, but his time is more limited. And my sisters and I, we have more time to be able to give of ourselves. We work together on a lot of projects. But I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. Our kids go to different schools. So each one will volunteer or help in many different ways to their children's school. I personally was involved in starting a school. So together with very talented educators in Miami, I'm the founding president of a school called Jewish Culture High School. Through that school, I'm able to give not just of my time and of my resources, but also of my network, because I can bring speakers to the school, and I can bring experiences to the school, and I can bring the students to certain experiences that I can provide outside the school. So it's a group effort that I have with the network of my family and my sisters, but we do work individually, and we're passionate about different things. Some people in our family connect to different causes, and those causes are very important causes, and they're very amazing causes, but it's not necessarily a cause that I want to fully commit to. So again, it's a little bit of give and take, and trying to figure out really what's the most important to you and prioritizing where you want to spend your time.
Well, how do you figure that out? I mean, there's this kind of range, right? There's the things that you're doing in your community, and again, we talked about the farther reach and getting all the way to Israel. Your grandmother gave to Israel. Your mother gave to Israel. The whole family's been giving to Israel. Is that why you're giving to Israel, or was there something that clicked specifically for you?
Again, it's a little bit of everything. Because when I think back as to how I started giving as an individual, I remember when a girl would give birth in our community, we would all cook together and deliver the food. And this was before WhatsApp, so the logistics were a little bit
It was a lot harder then.
There was a little girl in our neighborhood that drowned, and her family on Shabbat was overwhelmed on Friday nights for meals. They had a lot of children. So I organized the food for them for years, and because the girl was in a coma for many years, and we became very close to that family, and they inspired me in many, many ways. Those are smaller things, let's say, that today I actually can't do. I can't get in my car and deliver food to people because I have more kids, because I have more responsibilities. I can get on the phone and order something for someone, but to stand and actually physically do those things, I can't do that anymore. So there's different stages in my life where I've done different things that in the moment have made an impact in different ways that changes as it goes. We travel to Israel a lot, and we are on the ground here really, I wouldn't say half my time, but probably my heart all the time. And physically here, we're here a lot. When I'm here, things just happen. I get opportunities, and I hear about projects, and I hear about either a need or something wonderful that I want to be involved in. And I make it my business, and I find the time, no matter how busy I am, to be there and to do that. Many times I can involve my kids, and many times I can't. So whenever there's an activity or something that is child-oriented, my kids have to come with me. Mm-hmm. And if it's something that's more formal, then I find something else for them to do so that I can physically be there. But here in Israel, I say this a lot, and anyone that spends time with me here, we try to do something every day that's fun and meaningful. Now, sometimes the fun and meaningful is together. And other times, you have to find a fun activity and then something meaningful. And we do that every single day. Because in the United States, when we're home, sitting at the dinner table, what was the best part, what was the worst part of your day is a great conversation. But here in Israel, like, what did you do today that made a difference, or that made somebody smile, or that is meaningful? I don't know why we have the opportunity to do it a lot more here. And sometimes it means buying an ice cream for a soldier at a specific place that we walk by and he looked hot. And other times it'll mean doing a barbecue for 100 soldiers on an army base. Here we have the opportunity to give both physically and also of ourselves on a regular basis. And it's inspiring because in Hebrew you say mitzvah goreret lemitzvah. Like the more you do, the more you want to do, and the more opportunities you see. And the more you're involved, the more opportunities you get. And I really just feel very honored and blessed that because of my family's name for giving and involvement and leadership, people turn to me all the time, and I feel like I'm the lucky one that I have that opportunity to be involved in such important, powerful moments here in the state of Israel.
So you're bringing me back to my personal experiences, which are somewhat different, but when I was 14, we came on a family trip to Israel, not as frequently as you do, and there was one day that I just wanted to sit out the family program. And my parents said, that's not a problem. You do your thing, but make sure that you make today meaningful. Every day that you're in Israel needs to be meaningful. I would think that that's a mantra for all of life, anywhere you might live in the world. But something happens, you just described it when you come to Israel. Do you think it's possible that because you're looking for that opportunity, that you find more opportunities, meaning that kind of we're going to do something meaningful today, that you're kind of your antennas up?
Yes, it's a mindset for sure, but you're also out of your daily routine. So maybe for us it's in Israel, but maybe there's people that go on vacation to other places and they're able to do that. We are in a very set schedule and in a regular routine as a family. When you have children going to school, carpools, there's a lot of distractions. So on a regular basis, maybe you have less time. Doesn't mean that you're not doing things that are meaningful, because in school, I'm sure they do things that are meaningful. I would hope so, because I pick schools that really focus on all of these values that are important to us as a family and as Jewish leaders, really. If their school is not giving them meaningful things to do, I would revisit why we're there. But as a family, you do have less opportunities when the parents are out and when everybody's, at work, at school. And here, either it's a vacation mode or maybe you're here in a meaningful trip, purpose. And whatever that purpose is, it gives you more purpose. You don't get tired of it. And I think that you could apply that anywhere you go. But when you go to Cancun, you're going to the beach. You're not going there with meaning and purpose. Can you find meaning and purpose? 100%. But you go to certain places looking for certain things. And there's something very holy and very spiritual about being in Israel. And people connect to that immediately. And once people get here, they want to do more. And people will call me and say, what are you doing today? How can I get involved? Can you send me somewhere and I ask them, what are you passionate about? Do you want to visit soldiers that are injured? Do you want to go visit families that need support? Do you want to make a birthday party for someone? Do you want to invite someone out to lunch? Like, there's so much necessity, unfortunately, because of the situation in Israel, that is very palpable, and it's very easy to make somebody smile here with something very small. So your investment here goes a very long way.
I want to talk in just a moment about the season that we're in right now in Israel, but I want to first track back, because you mentioned some of the people who refer to you, and they're seeking guidance. You're doing all these amazing things. They know that. They don't know nearly as much as you have a sense of what you're doing, but they have a sense, or they can get a glimpse of what you're involved in. They say, you know what, Tila, please give us some guidance. Let us know where to go. You mentioned before kind of the way you try to prioritize things and you focus on passion, and you help them do the same thing. Is there like a quote-unquote feedback system where you find that you might have tried a few different things, but that's the thing that really resonates? That's the thing where, yes, you were passionate about A and B and C, but it was C that's when you're going to keep going back to.
Everyone is different.
I mean for you, for Tila.
Oh, for me. I like to do and help in places that people are not helping. So I don't go to the very visible places. I don't go to the very visible organizations. I don't try to be a part of something that's already powerful and existing. I like to do things with my sisters or on my own. I don't want people telling me how to do something, and I don't want people telling me where to go. And because I know that we're lucky, and it's because I spend so much time here, that I have access to places and to people that many people, others, don't have. And it's okay. And wherever somebody is involved, I always say, like, as long as they're giving and as long as they're involved, doesn't matter what it is. And it doesn't matter what the model of the organization is or what percentages are being spent which way. I don't like to be critical of others. I like to do things my way. And my way is very hands-on. And every time that I'm here, it changes. This time, I found meaning in visiting farms. Last time, I found meaning in connecting with widows and orphans. So every time changes, and it's not that one is more important than the other or that I prioritize one more than the other, but in the moment, who needs me the most? Where can I have a bigger impact? And how can I bring people there to join me? So I do use my social media a little bit. And people ask me all the time, how do I get there? Where did you go? How can I be involved? Mm-hmm. I put up links a few times this summer just to get people involved and to let people feel like they're also a part of it. We did some barbecues. We bought some gifts. We helped actually 2 soldiers whose houses were completely destroyed by missiles that came from Iran. It changes from one time to the next, but I'm definitely not mainstream.
Right. So there sounds to me like there's this parallel. First of all, there's all these different layers of values that you're referring to. There's your sense of responsibility, that your commitment to your passions. the fact that you're discovering all kinds of different things because you've got your antenna up, the nature of being in Israel, all these things coming together. You mentioned the farm. So just yesterday I had the opportunity, I was in the Golan Heights, and I visited for the first time on his farm a guy who I went to high school with, who knows how many years ago, in Manhattan. He's moved to Israel since then, and now he's got a farm, and it's just amazing. And the challenges and the drought, and it's just not simple, but it's also pretty amazing to see the way that people are giving there to the land as well. You mentioned the widows. I heard you speak at a program for JNS, the JNS Summit, where you spoke about how, I'll use my terminology, how you and your sister, perhaps your sisters, rolled up your sleeves and got involved in the Widows Program. And we're not going to mention, this is not to denigrate, heaven forbid, any other organization.
No, they're doing great things.
But you felt that there was something that, because of your unique style and your hands-on approach, that you were able to accomplish where maybe the larger organizations couldn't get that deep into what was going on. Can you describe that for us?
Like you said, I'm not looking to criticize anyone. Everyone is doing a great job as long as they're involved and they're doing something. I can be critical of people that do nothing, and there's plenty of that too. Or people that are not doing for their own people, and that also kind of bothers me, whether it's your own community or if you're always looking to give somewhere else and never looking in your own home, let's say, quote unquote. After October 7th, I really do believe that giving has changed. Philanthropy from the United States to here for sure has changed, because I think people wanted a much more hands-on approach. They wanted to know that every dollar that they were giving was being spent exactly for the cause. Now, many organizations put away money, they have endowments, they build beautiful buildings, it takes time. All of that is still necessary. We need infrastructure, we need people that are putting away money for a rainy day, but October 7th was the rainy day and continues to be the rainy day. So the fact that people aren't using that money immediately to help the needs that are on the ground right now was something that we realized that we needed to change in that moment. Now, in the past, our passion, and I say our because it's my sisters and I really, we wanted to connect our community in Miami to Israel. And we did that through events. We did a beautiful event at the stadium, the Marlin Stadium, 3 years in a row. We did it to celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut, and we brought all the Jewish schools together to come, similar to the Israel Day Parade, but in a concept of...
The Israel Day Parade in Manhattan.
In New York. And in Miami, because of weather and security, it's not possible. So we took it into our own hands. We did it. It was super successful. And people, the kids walked away feeling connected to each other, which was super important, and feeling connected to Israel, which to us was very important. Now, because of that, we already had a network, and we had created a name and a brand where people trusted us and saw that we're on the ground, getting our hands dirty and really getting the job done. So after October 7th, people turned to us and said, can you help us allocate our money? We want to make sure that the money gets exactly where it needs to get to. At the beginning, everybody wanted to help the kibbutzim, which was a beautiful thing. But the kibbutzim were not people who were poor. They were people who were homeless. And it's not the same thing. They were people whose homes were destroyed, but they had a very nice livelihood wherever they were living that would eventually come back. So the government steps in situations like that. And of course, they need, in the moment, some kindness, some love, some, a teddy bear for the kids, or simple things that make people happy when they're displaced. So we immediately jumped in. We did a toy drive, and we were sending toys in huge duffel bags to anybody that was coming to Israel, and having people go and distribute it in the hotels to the kids because they were homeless and they didn't have their toys. And as mothers, that's what we related to immediately. That turned into identifying people who had serious needs. And it was needs that needed to be met immediately. It wasn't something that 5 years from now, they'll be able to set up a fund and they will benefit from that fund, which is also important. The kids' bar mitzvah, the kids' education, eventually the weddings of their children. All of that is going to come. But I feel like by that time, hopefully, everyone will be stronger on their feet. So we realized that there was a serious need with widows because the widows, the main breadwinner, was gone. And they were heartbroken. And so these mothers weren't functioning the way, even if they had the ability to go out to work before, they weren't functioning the same way as when they had a father at home that was helping them.
Tila, are we talking about the widows of
October
service
7th.
people who died in the army, or civilians, or both?
Both. Anyone that we could. We started making lists. My sister is very organized. She created a database, and she started making lists of women that had lost their husband since October 7th, because you have to narrow it down if you want to make an impact. And since then, we were able to raise money from friends and family that wanted to be involved in this. Our family was very involved in this, specifically one of our uncles. This was his project. And instead of all of a sudden, helping everybody and having a smaller impact, we were helping fewer people maybe, but having a larger impact. And I think that is where we need to focus. I think that it's very nice to be involved in many different causes. And that's, if you can make a check to 100 different organizations, do it. Whether you're giving $5 or $5,000, wherever you can give. But when you're giving of your time is limited. And so is money. But when you're giving of your time and your efforts, you have to focus on where you want to put that effort. And so since October 7th, my sisters and I, we do have a foundation. It's called South Florida Zionists, which we pivoted from that big celebration. We said we can't raise money right now for a celebration and education in our community. We need to get our hands on the ground and help these people. And that's what we've been doing. But at the same time, we're in Miami. It's a place where a lot of people, victims of October 7th, were coming. So we hosted soldiers that were injured. We hosted hostage families. We hosted hostages that came out and their families. It became almost like a hub in Miami of where people were coming to tell their story. And because we were already on the ground and people already knew us, we were able to help them tell that story, whether it was at the schools or in the synagogues or at community centers, or even get them spots on local TV. All of that we were able to do because we already had a network that we've been working with from before October 7th. So again, whoever is giving, keep giving. If you have more time, find something that you love to do so that you continue to give with passion. But the giving can change, and that's okay too, based on the needs of what's going on in your surroundings. And if somebody asks you for help, you help them. I don't know how, not always the same way. Whether you introduce them to somebody or you can help them yourselves, every single person that asks me for help, I really, really answer every message, every email, talk to every person that I can. I can't always do it myself, but I always find a way to help them and at least guide them in the right direction.
It's a really amazing, because you're talking about a multiple kind of bottom line where, let's say you bring out a hostage who's, everyone is their own world, but a world in and of themselves and the kind of experience that they've been through. And then you bring them back to the community, let's say in Miami, where you're educating the community. And so you're doing something for the hostage, maybe some R&R after what they've been through, and at the same time you're kind of putting them to work because they have so much to give themselves important to the community. Is there this kind of like aha moment where either for you or for a hostage or for a family, and you sit back and say, you know what, this is like multi-level. I can be doing something that's benefiting myself, my personal well-being, and at the same time giving?
It's kind of like the Montessori system in school. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but basically you have older kids and younger kids, 3 different ages, and the older kids are playing with little kids, teaching them how to do things, but they're actually learning from teaching them how to do things. And the younger kids, just from being in a room with older kids, are going to learn because they're learning what the older kids are doing just by watching them do it. I see that a lot. And the truth is that most of the time, if you're helping somebody else, you're really helping yourself. And it's not a selfish thing to do because your intention is still to help that other person. But really, you're helping yourself. You could see that as a parent. You could see that as a spouse. You could see that even in the word love in Hebrew. Love actually, ahava, is not love. Ahava actually means to give. Mm-hmm. And the more you give someone, the more you love someone. You see it with a baby. The more you do for that baby and the more you give to that baby, the more you feel connected and the more you feel responsible for that baby. At the beginning, that baby's not giving much to you. It's really hard. It's hard work at the beginning. As a mother, you're not sleeping. You have to feed them. You have to take care of them, change their diapers. They cry. It's hard. But the more you give, the more you love. And I feel that way about giving. The more you give, the more you gain, because you gain kindness and sensitivity and connection with people that you probably would have never otherwise met. And when you talk to people, there's always something to learn from those people. And so when they come to Miami, whoever they is, because everybody comes to Miami, and that's our connection between Israel and Miami, even when we're not here, it's through these events and it's through these people that come there. Especially, for example, at the school. When I bring kids to our high school, we have kids from 8th grade to 12th grade. These kids are so excited to hear these stories, right? Because these soldiers become celebrities, or even the hostages, for the wrong reasons. They're all famous. You know their name, you know their story, you've been praying for them. All of a sudden they come, these kids feel like the celebrity came to visit them. But then when they tell their story, it's a connection that they'll never forget. So it's true, the hostage comes because they want to tell their story. They're advocating for the hostages that are still there. They're advocating for the people that came out so that they get everything that they need. All of that is true. But what the students are getting and what our community is getting from listening to them is something that you can't buy. And those experiences are something really special that we are able to create because of our network in Miami, in our school. And I see it in relation to Israel, but also in relation to our community. The school that I was a part of starting is the project that I am the most proud of, because it wasn't started to benefit me in any way. My children were not going to go to that school. And because of a turn of events in our lives, my kids needed that school, and it was already in the works. And I saved my own children and their education and their future because the school was already there. I had no idea that that was going to happen. And thank God it was the best thing that happened. But I see it with all the kids that come through our school. We're literally changing the lives of students every single day. And it's an honor to be able to be involved in that. And the more I think I'm doing for them, I realize, wow, how lucky am I that I have that privilege to be a part of this process.
It's really amazing that you say that, again, for so many reasons. I think that, number one, I would argue that the most important investment that we'll ever make is what we give. And the question then
100%.
is, what's the exchange rate on giving? What's that currency? What is it that we are receiving in return? Because clearly we're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the other. And you just gave a great example with the school where you gave because the school needed to happen, but then you became the beneficiary of that. Is there an outcome of some sort where you can say that the students at the school have received something that they wouldn't have received had that school not been there?
Absolutely, on many different levels. Some of it is academic, some of it is social, some of it is sport related, but I can tell you my contribution to the school is connecting them to Israel. And many schools connect to Israel, but I offered and I teach at the school once a week history of the state of Israel.
Oh, really?
And that is giving of my time. When I walk into that classroom, I am on fire. I'm so excited to teach them what I know.
What
And
ages? I'm sorry, what age
high
are you
school,
teaching?
10th grade. 10th grade. And I've already done it for 2 years. And at the end of their course, they come to Israel. My family sponsors a trip, and they come to Israel on an itinerary that I create with the rabbi and the school that basically outlines everything that we taught them in that process. I could tell you that our trip to Israel is a trip that the kids would never take if it was the specific trip. I'm sure many people will come to Israel. They would never take that trip on their own. And if it wasn't for the school, the knowledge that they gain, the experiences that they have, and the people they interact with, they would not have it in any other way. And I see that they're different. I see that the graduating class, when they graduated and they're all coming to Israel and they all want to give back and they feel so connected. I have kids that have never been to Israel before. I have kids that have been 100 times with their family. But the trip that they have with our school here in Israel is a trip that is different than everybody else's. It's very hands-on. There's real life experiences. There's real people experiences. It's something that we put together with a lot of thought and with a lot of effort and with a lot of love. And the outcome is different, 100%.
What's the difference? Why is this so? Because like you said, there are lots of trips, and there's no question there are people who have gone on the cookie cutter tours. There's also people who might visit frequently with their family. Maybe they have family. but I'm hearing that there's something very special, and it's obviously the love that you're pouring into them. But is there something else? Is there something about the quality of this visit that really sets it apart?
Look, it's not the hotels that they stay at, I promise you that. It's the content that we're able to create because we're here so often and on the ground. Whenever there's something new and exciting.
Give an example.
I don't want to criticize other trips.
Right, we're not
But I
criticizing.
can tell you that our trip, we take them to farms in Judea and Samaria.
So you mentioned the farms. Tell me about the farms. What happens there?
Okay, they go to a farm in Judea and Samaria. They find one or two families living on a hilltop out of pure Zionism. These are kids that are coming from a beautiful place like Miami, and they meet two American guys at Arrow Goat Farms.
Sure.
Ari and Jeremy, who sold everything they had to come there because they believed in settling the land of Israel, and they are the Judean cowboys of the Judean frontier. Nobody could ever meet them or experience what you experienced by going there, by hearing their story, by jumping in their pool, by watching them quote from the Bible and seeing it before your eyes. That's not something that you can learn unless you go there. The thing is, because it's Judea and Samaria, not every school is willing to take their kids there.
Can you just slow down? Because I know you know how to educate about Israel.
Yes.
And not everyone is familiar with the terms Judea and Samaria. Can you just bring us up to speed really quickly?
Yes.
And I can fill in the blanks as
Of course.
necessary, of course.
Judea and Samaria is the biblical homeland of the Jewish people. Everything that takes place in the Bible, in the Torah, happened in areas of Judea and Samaria. The modern Israel is very important, and we appreciate all of it, every single inch of it, every single part of it. But if you give up on the story of Judea and Samaria, you're giving up on our right and our claim to be here.
I'm just going to interject for a second, Tila, because I've briefed all kinds of groups about Judea and Samaria as well. And so we're talking about an area that the world refers to generally as the West Bank, which people living in the area... Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. You're great.
So most people in Israel, or certainly in the area of Judea and Samaria, would consider West Bank a misnomer. We're not going to go into the analysis right now. Look it up on Wikipedia. But that area is
less accessible.
Well, it's less accessible, and it's not today. We're recording August 2025. It is not today recognized internationally as part of the state of Israel. So you said Israel.
I would like to say one thing,
Please go ahead.
It is recognized by the State Department of the United States of America. Speaker Mike Johnson just went and was the highest ranking official to visit Shiloh and Ariel University and many places in Judea and Samaria. And here in the Knesset, there was recently a vote, and they won the vote to declare sovereignty on Judea and Samaria, which hasn't happened yet. But there are also security restrictions and concerns, because if you get lost in certain areas and you don't know the map well, you may find yourself in a very hostile community, village, area where people get attacked and could be very dangerous.
Meaning this area is, there are different populations in the area. There's a very large Arab Palestinian population. There's the Jewish population. And so you're referring to kind of knowing your way around and not going in past what they call the red signs, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So you need to know where you're going. You need to know who you're visiting and how you're getting there. So we take our kids there because we think that it's important to visit all of Israel and to visit Jewish communities everywhere. And we shouldn't be limited to anything. So we are able to provide the security and, of course, the locations and the people to receive them in different areas because of being here and being involved in these communities. And the kids' experiences are different. Even as basic as going to Hebron, where you visit the tomb of the patriarchs, where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their wives, and even Adam and Eve are buried. Not everybody will go there. Most mainstream trips will not go there. And it's not a matter of like politics or even religion. It's a matter of security. If you do things properly and you coordinate with the security forces or the army, there are many ways to make it very accessible. We don't take security lightly. We're very serious about where we take the kids, and we make sure that they will be safe. And if there's any concerns, they will not go. But we don't limit their education and their experience to any one place. And that is something that they know is different, and they know we're fighting for them to get the best experience. They feel it, and they go home with a sense of empowerment, of having been able to visit places that either their friends and family haven't been to, or that no one that they know has ever been to. So they'll go on Birthright, and they'll go on the March of the Living, and they'll go High School in Israel. There's many, many programs. they won't go to the places that we take them. And we're happy to take any group that wants to go and help them get there. Because if you know where you're going, you're going to be fine. But it's important to know your past to know where you're going. And that's the nuance of Judea and Samaria.
So I want to touch upon that. And I did have the honor, the opportunity to host Speaker Johnson and the congressional delegation last week, both in Ariel and in Hebron. And there was a lot of security, that's for sure. But there is that curiosity, that need for education where the United States plays such an important role vis-a-vis Israel. And how could it be that the elected leaders who are speaking about the future of this region are not informed? And you're bringing that not just to the Speaker of the House, you're bringing that to the students.
Because they're our future leaders.
Exactly.
They are the ones that in 10 years are going to be making these decisions and involved in policy. And if they don't know what they're talking about, that's, I truly believe, now back to giving and giving of your time, I truly believe that the education that we're giving the next generation across the board, the American students, the Jewish students, Christian students, every student, is very important to the future of all of our countries, like both Israel, United States, Europe, all the countries around the world. And the problem is that a lot of these kids are getting the wrong information, the wrong indoctrination, the wrong investment of knowledge. And it's very scary because you see that it's so hostile on college campuses. But when you see Jews marching for students of Justice of Palestine, that's where you know that we're doing something wrong. And that's the basic, that's just the very easy one to access. And then when you see students, young kids being so anti-Semitic and they don't even know why, and they don't understand what they're fighting for, and you have gays marching for Palestine or women marching for Gaza, all of that is a lack of knowledge and information. And if people would invest their time and their energy, of course the money, but in the places that they can really make an impact, that could also change the way the future looks for all of our leadership.
So I personally believe that the world is going to be a better place if there's a net gain, meaning if people give more than they take. And so you spoke about that before, which is this general kind of appreciation for giving in and of itself. But clearly you're speaking about some of the frustration where people think that they're doing a service to society, but really there's a lack of coherence between what it is that they're trying to accomplish and where they're coming from. So you're referring to, people who are championing a cause that actually undermines their own personal value system, or other elements of the community that are trying to support something, again, that might be counter to the well-being of their own family. And so if I'm just paraphrasing a little bit about where you're coming from on all of that, how do you handle that frustration? I mean, you're part of the giving community. You are raising your children to give. You are doing everything you can so that their birthday gifts are going to a cause. And yet there's other people, and this is not a political discussion.
Right. I can't cure everybody's problems.
So what do you do? How do you cope?
You start in the home. And in the home is not just your physical home, but that's where I said, you start in the home, and then you look at your city, and you look at your community, and you look at who your people are, and you look at where your causes are. You start where you feel like you can make an impact, but you have to be involved. And whatever you're involved in, understand it and get the facts. And if you're just writing a check to the Humane Society, okay, and you love animals, and that specific shelter is a kill shelter, and they're killing the animals, that's on you. You're supposed to do your research. So, and I can give you a million examples, but I'm trying to give you an example that's close to home, right? So if I truly care about animals, I do. I care very much about animals. Do you know what's happening to the animals in Gaza? Do you know how the Gazan population treats animals? You know that donkeys are being thrown off rooftops just to kill or hurt soldiers? I feel like whatever it is that you care about, and if it's children, and you think that the children of Gaza are being starved, do your research. Find what's really happening. How could it be that the child is starving and the mother's overweight in the picture that you're looking at and that you're holding at a rally? People have access to so much information that they've become lazy because your algorithm is only going to show you what you want to see. Go beyond that. Try to get the facts. Do a little bit of research. That's on you. Where are you giving of your time? Where are you giving of your money? Where are you giving of your talents? That is on you. And make sure that what you're doing, you really, really know where it's going and what you're doing. And that's why I moved away from the larger organizations, not because they're not doing something right. They're doing many things that are right, but I have no control of that. It's on me to do the research. And if people trust me, then they will give to me to give to others. And that happens a lot because you create a name for yourself and you create a reputation. And anybody, whether it's in your own community, at your kid's school, at a university, you can get involved and you can make a difference. I've seen it happen over and over again. You just have to want to make a difference and not follow the masses.
So you mentioned a couple of things that are really critical, and I think we're going to try to bring this together because you mentioned earlier in the conversation how at the beginning of the war, everybody wanted to make sure that their dollar was going to the best place possible. And I just want to suggest that I've seen some people that just wanted to make sure that their dollars went to the cause, let's call it to the Israel bucket, people who would liquidate their entire foundation because, like you say, now is the time to act, but they didn't take the next step, which is what you're describing right now, which is the inform, which is the study, which is perhaps they can't be the one who's teaching the 10th grade class, but they can be more informed.
So I don't think they're doing something wrong. They're still doing something wonderful. And I would never be critical of someone that is giving. It's just their impact is going to be a lot smaller. And for some people, that's okay. I gave, I feel good. You know, I'm sitting in New York City at the rooftop of my beautiful apartment. I made my check to Israel. It will get to whoever it needs to get to. And yes, it gets to Israel. It does. That's okay too. But to do more is to follow that through. And I have a neighbor who decided that he was taking upon himself helmets and vests. And so anybody
to give to the Israeli Defense Forces defensive gear
to the soldiers, but specifically helmets and vests, because many organizations were saying we can provide many things. We are not allowed to provide any tactical gear, which is helmets and vests. That's fine. But if you want to buy a helmet and a vest for a soldier, find someone who's giving to helmets and vests. And just like that, I saw with widows, I saw with orphans, I saw with different causes, people that wanted to give specifically to Kibbutz Be'eri, specifically to the hostage forum. Whatever it was that people wanted to give to, of course you can give to your local federation and your money will get there eventually. How much of it? I don't know. Where it's going? I don't know. It's okay. I'd rather it go there than for it to go to the Red Cross, because the Red Cross clearly was not doing what they stand for. But if you actually want to have a greater impact for a smaller investment or even a large investment that has a huge ripple effect, do your research.
So Tila, I think that we're just going to focus on that for just a second, and with this kind of bring things again together, because it is, I think, inspirational that you take your giving as seriously as you do, from the little charity box, which you thought the money actually magically made its way, or your grandmother was carrying coins in her pockets on the flight to Israel to somehow get that to buy a tree.
My grandmother had back pain, and I was sure it was because she planted so many trees in Israel.
Amazing.
I've planted trees in Israel, but not thousands of them.
But you see, but that's the thing. You've taken that extra step and you've gone through the entire methodology. You've created, I would suggest, a certain degree of a science or a social science on how to go about prioritizing your projects, identifying the values, coming up with the appreciation for your own, what resonates with you as your passion projects. And like you say, again, we can talk about purpose. You don't have only one purpose as a person. We don't have a life purpose. We have many life purposes. You've got 6 children. Those are 6 life purposes.
And what I teach them and how I teach them is also different than what I do everywhere else, because here we are on the ground planting trees, visiting people, serving hot meals. That's different. That's actually teaching hands-on. But when your involvement on a bigger scale is already a different skill set.
So this is a critical conversation, and I hope our listeners and subscribers, the community, are figuring out what this means to take that extra step and to figure out that you can do more. And that if it's a bucket, it's a giving bucket, that's great, like you say, that's wonderful. Maybe it's your tithe. Maybe that's somewhere you said, I'm just going to put that money there. But perhaps if you're not spending the kind of time informing yourself about your giving, perhaps it's because it needs to, you use the word investment. If this is parallel to our other investments need very specific tools to get to a bottom line, which is return on investment. Those are capital returns. But when we're talking about investments where the currency, as we mentioned before, is something different, And we're going to close with this just now. When we talk about that kind of a different currency, so the question then becomes, what are you getting, so to speak, in return? How do you measure that? It does require you to be more connected. It requires you to take that extra step. You get back, of course, to what you mentioned earlier, which is this unrenewable resource of time. So again, how do you create these efficiencies where you can do things and create that ripple effect that you referred to before? So Tila, I find this fascinating, and I think that this is an inspirational conversation.
There's
Go ahead.
one thing I want to say. There's a very famous story, and I don't remember which rabbi told this story, but it's about a man who passes away, and he insists to be buried with his socks. Do you know this story?
I must have heard it, but that goes back. That's also buried with the other sock stories that I don't remember very well. So share.
So he insists on being buried with his socks. And he leaves in his will that he wants to be buried with his socks. Now, Jewish people, Jewish burials, they do a special purification process where the body is buried just as it was born. It goes back into the ground. You cannot be buried with your socks. And this man left in his will that he wanted to be buried with his socks, and his children opened the will, and they didn't understand it. And they went to the rabbi and said, "What does this mean? My father wants to be buried with his socks, so just bury him with his socks." And the message that the rabbi had for the children when they came there was, when you go, you can't even take your socks with you. And the only things you take with you are what you leave behind, and that is your charity. Whatever you've invested in and your legacy and whatever you've been involved in, that is what you could take with you. And that is the theme, I think, of you are what you give. Because when we go, we want to know that we made an impact. Where did you make an impact? What impact did you make? And that's the only thing that you're going to take with you, because your socks ain't coming with you. Amazing.
I tell a different version of a story, but I'm going to keep it for another time.
Okay.
But 100%, that is precisely the message of you are what you give. That's just it. You are not what you consume. You are not defined. There's not going to be, I'm not familiar with a single culture in the world where somebody says at the funeral, wow, that guy was really stingy, or he made so much money. You will invariably always try to find that place where what the person gave to the community, because you know intuitively.
Where they were involved.
Yeah. Well, you know intuitively that that will be their legacy, what they gave, not what they took. Quick, rapid fire questions to completely close us off for today. So question number one, we talked about this currency, right? What is the currency? If you could choose all of this investment that you're making with your time, your talents, your treasures, what would be the sort of benefit or the outcome in a word or in a sentence that you'd like to see part of that net gain for the world that we live in?
My kids continuing the same mission as me. If they continue to do what I did and they're involved and they're giving, that's my currency.
Amazing. Next question. Is there something that you've lost sleep over during the course of this past year? And if so, what was that?
Not being to help all the people that needed help.
And literally losing sleep over it.
Yes, I try to think at night how I can connect them to someone that can help them.
Amazing. And last, we speak about giving more meaningfully, more mindfully, and more measurably. Okay, so the meaning, that's the purpose part. The mindful is figuring out the methodology of giving. And the third part, the measurable, is what are the outcomes? If there's one of those three things that you could focus on to be even better at your giving, and I don't know that there's a better giving than Tila Falic, the way she's doing it today, but you're on that journey and you continue to find ways. What would you focus on more? Meaningful, mindful, or measurable?
Meaningful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tila, this was amazing. Thank you so very much. I have no doubt that the giving that you've done today by pouring into our community with this conversation will help broaden and deepen their appreciation for what giving can be. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tila, not only for an amazing conversation, but for literally walking our audience through the entire process of kosher giving. When I say kosher giving, I am referring to the kosher giving book that I wrote at the beginning of the October 7th war. But this podcast is not about book sales. It truly is not. I'm actually not going to put the Amazon page link inside the show notes just to demonstrate that I'm not in the business of book sales, at least not on this episode. I just want to recognize the fact that Tila's done a phenomenal job of really helping us understand that a life that is so committed to giving really exemplifies these principles. The subtitle on the book is 4 Steps to Creating your meaningful, mindful, and measurable philanthropy plan. So, that's what Tila's giving is. Meaningful. Everything that she does is clearly very, very personal to her. It starts with her life story. She starts with her grandmother and her mother. And then she continues with her spouse and her children. And then not only her children, but those concentric circles that touch upon students in the school that she's so personally committed to. Everything about her giving is meaningful to her. Mindful. Tila has her antenna up at all times. She is looking not only at what she's giving to, but where is the next opportunity? Every day, another project. That doesn't mean that she's hop, skipping, and jumping from one thing to the next. It means that she's going to give as intently as she can and to be as present as possible in any particular giving initiative. But when that runs its course, she's going to find the next opportunity to give. Always asking the piercing question of how can she give better, whether it's to the current project or the next project around the bend. And measurable. She wants to know that she's not only giving to things that are meaningful to her, and not only is she aware of the needs, but she wants to know that she moves the needle, that the needs are being tended to, that the time, effort, resources that she's applying to any given project are going to have a yield. Now, that's really a high demand, but it's something that she continues to demand of herself, that same responsibility that she spoke about, because it is a commitment to doing well with your giving, much like you would want to do well with any other kind of investment. So, Tila, thank you for walking us through meaningful, mindful, and measurable giving. Now let's move from these gifts that Tila's given us to our weekly giving challenge. Our giving challenge today is about expanding the circle of giving. How can we get more people to get involved in giving or to give better than they're already giving today? Maybe it's a conversation about the kind of projects that you love to give to, or the kind of projects that may be, again, around the bend, things that you're thinking about, involving other people in those conversations, thinking about them, taking the time to make giving into a conversation, not the sort of thing that we do behind a computer screen or send through someone who we like to work with and never get an opportunity to talk about. If you're talking about other kinds of investments, give yourself the opportunity to talk about giving as well. Maybe it's not just talk, you're actually inviting someone to get involved with something that you're doing, or to volunteer. Whatever the case may be, think about how you can create an additional space for another person to give. Keep in mind, we're not in the business of convincing people. This isn't sales. This is an invitation. But it is an invitation where we can glean another important point from Tila, which is the enthusiasm, the passion, the excitement. If you're not excited about your giving, it's going to be a little bit difficult to create a contagious effect with the other people who you're interacting with. Think about what really matters to you. What about your giving is meaningful to you? What is purposeful to you? Tap into that passion and then share an invitation with someone else. Also keep in mind that if this conversation with Tila resonated, it's also a great opportunity to share this with someone else. That's also a way of inviting them into this expanding circle of people who give. And of course, the more people who join the team, who join the community of better giving, the better our world will be. Thanks for listening. If this conversation resonates, please subscribe. It's a simple step that helps us share the word and build a community that values what we give more than what we take.